Jessica Saavedra. I am a sophomore BCE major. I will be introducing the first keynote speaker, Michael Traylor. He has spent 30 plus years as a music attorney, entrepreneur, and short stint as a label executive in the music business. He has represented a wide variety of talent, producers, and labels in the music industry before shifting his focus as technology shifted the business and labels in the music industry before the new millennium. He represented a wide variety of talent, producers, and labels in the music industry before shifting his focus as technology shifted the business and the digital media area arrived in the new millennium. Since then, Michael has focused his practice on what he refers to as advanced media, which would include anything at the cross-section in traditional entertainment and technology. One area of special interest was within the video, game, and AR/VR industries. These interests led him to recently join Meta's AR/VR division as Associate General Counsel, as the company led the path to the new Metaverse. Meta has had previous issues regarding exclusionary practices, so we invited Michael to further explain how he overcame these challenges and how Meta has become one of inclusion, equity, and opportunity. Michael is a native Detroiter and lifelong music lover who attended the University of Michigan. I welcome you, Michael Traylor.
Thank you so much, Jess. I really appreciate that intro. Hey, everyone, it's great to be here. Truly honored by asking to speak at this event, something that several topics kind of intertwined that I'm very passionate about. So I'm anticipating having a great time during this short time we'll have together. I'm thankful to Doug for opening up and making the segue a bit easier. Actually met Doug a zillion years ago. It's been a long time, so good to see you. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the opportunity here. I'm going to ran on for a little while and try to leave most of the time for questions, because that way I can be assured that I'm getting you information that you care about, as opposed to things that may just be at the top of my mind. There are two kind of general areas that were communicated to me that were of interest here. So one obviously is, social media, the impact of digital media, kind of where the business is right now and how it's being impacted. And I definitely have some information about that, some thoughts on that. And then obviously there's an issue here of, disenfranchisement, right? And how that affects people, what to do about it, what to anticipate in that area going forward. So I'm going to try to bridge that gap if I can, and then leave some opportunity to answer specific questions at the end. I'll give you a bit of a brief background. As Jess mentioned, I'm a native Detroiter, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, went to University of Michigan undergrad, go Blue, of course. I guess in college, well, in high school, my high school actually in Detroit, Cass Tech High School is called, you actually had to pick a major as a sophomore in high school. They had about a dozen curricula, and as a sophomore, you had to pick one. And that curricula was designed to get you to be thoughtful about your path to college. It was a college prep school, and really kind of get you really honing in on a career, at least an area of your career that you wanted to focus on. And when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a doctor, right? So the curricula I picked at Cass was chemistry, biology. And so I spent 3 years taking six semesters of chemistry and 5 semesters of biology and 4 semesters of physics to learn how much I did not like science. So by the time I graduated high school, I knew I did not want to be a doctor. And so I was also one of those people that people would always say, you should be a lawyer, you should be a lawyer. And I was a huge music lover. So at one point early in college, I learned that there was such a thing as an entertainment lawyer, right? Someone that represented folks in the entertainment business. And I thought, this is a great thing, right? I can be excited about the content that I'm working around. And I kind of really super honed in on that probably about my sophomore year of college, and graduated Michigan, moved to Los Angeles for that reason, because at that time, most of the music business was centered in Los Angeles. Attended Loyola Law School, and was able to get a job at a small but high profile entertainment firm, where I worked for a few years. And then that firm kind of merged into where the principal of that firm kind of merged into a broader entertainment company, and then he helped me spin off my own practice, and then it took on its own direction. Kind of getting to what I think was the key point in my career. So I guess about 7 years in, after having practiced music law, and I connected with a business partner, and we started up an entertainment company that did a lot more things. He was not a lawyer. And we did everything from marketing consulting for entertainment companies to marketing consulting for non-entertainment companies that wanted to utilize entertainment projects and properties and things of that nature. Our pitch to companies like Nike and General Motors and Chrysler and things like that, where no one can speak to your target audience better than the entertainment industry. And we kind of presented ourselves as a bridge between any kind of consumer marketing and high profile, very successful entertainment companies. And that company spawned into quite a few things, one of which was a small production company where we actually signed talent and things of that nature. That led me, and I'll try to abridge the long story, so again, we can get to some questions. That led us to some conversations over at Disney, whose contemporary label called Hollywood Records approached us about purchasing our small label, and us coming over and starting up an urban music division at Hollywood Records. We actually thought that was laughable at the time, not something that we thought we really wanted to do. They asked us to make, give us an offer. We gave them an offer that we thought they were going to reject, and they said okay, much to our surprise. So we did that deal. I kind of closed my law practice down. We closed the other company down and went over to Hollywood Records. And this is where the big shift in my career occurred. So there were two hugely important events that happened while I was at Hollywood Records. The first was we jumped into a couple of major projects that that we had to kind of take the reins on and cover. And so then when we kind of settled into what was going to be our next 3 to 5 years of a plan, we had sat down separately. We had to put together a budget, right? And so we came into the CEO's office. We had our budget laid out. We had all our arguments ready. We were all set. My partner's an MBA. So we had it covered. And we sat down in his office and he said, so what do you guys want to talk about? And we were like, we're here to talk about our budget. What are you talking about? And he said, oh, you guys didn't see the email this morning. And the email that had been distributed that morning was saying that they were freezing all marketing budgets across the company, not just Hollywood Records, but Disney as a whole, hiring freezes. Half of our budget was hiring people. So all these things that basically said, we weren't going to be able to do much of anything over the next few years. And so that kind of, put me in a position which was new to me because I had been entrepreneurial before that. I hadn't had a job since that first job as an attorney. That someone else could come in and tell me I'm not going to be able to do the things that I need to do for the next few years. So that was kind of one that was very uncomfortable for me, just based on the type of person I am. The second most important thing that happened and why this is such a shift in my career was one of those first two projects that I mentioned was really based upon, we were actually, quite honestly, we were hanging out in Miami during Super Bowl, and they had a John Madden, the game Madden football. They had a party for that during Super Bowl. We went to that party. I knew a few people at the company because I was a big gamer, and they were telling me about we got this great boxing title that's coming out, and we're gonna license, Mama Said Knock You Out by LL Cool J is the theme song, and we're so super excited. And knowing the business well, I knew what that license was going to cost. And it occurred to me, I'm like, why are you going to pay, high six figures, certainly, to license a song at that point? It was, I don't know, 5, 7 years old, an old song, to make people feel good about a game that they've already purchased, right? And I would get these kind of blank stares. And so by the end of the night, I had convinced them that it was better to give us that money to create a soundtrack of current music for the game that would be out in the marketplace working, if you will, from a marketing standpoint, while they were out in the marketplace working the title. Okay. So getting to the actual point now. So this is all right at the late 90s. I think I went to Disney in 98. So this is 99, 2000. The game was Knockout Kings 2000. So they said, yes, we made this deal. We did this great project. We had all these great cross-promotional elements to it. It went over incredibly well. We put motion capture into the video game. We used video game concepts in the music video. All these things were never done. We actually had the first ring walk with a live performer. It was for Shane Mosley when he won his first championship. All these like innovative, creative things that we did. I mean, it was truly great project. And so during this time, I would go up to EA and sit in on meetings, and we talk about all these things and whatnot, and plan and things of that nature. And at the same time, I'm having meetings unrelated to that project at Disney because I was on what they call the Synergy Committee. And they basically had a senior executive at every division of Disney that would sit in these meetings, and we go and we talk to all the other divisions about what was going on, because Disney was a very synergistic company. And if you were working on a project on one end, they wanted you to first look to, if you were at Hollywood Records, they wanted you to first look to, Hollywood Pictures for, cross-marketing, cross-promotion opportunities. So as I sat in on all these meetings on the music side, the conversation was, oh my God, this internet thing, it's gonna kill us. Like, what are we gonna do? We've gotta stop it. We've gotta work a way around it. We can't have this ruin our business, right? And that was kind of the tenor, not only at Hollywood Records, but kind of throughout the music business. The traditional music business was scared to death of the impact that the internet was gonna have on that business, right? So then I go up to Electronic Arts and sit in a meeting up there. They're like, this is the greatest thing ever. It's going to completely change our distribution models, and we'll be able to do so many wonderful things and whatnot, right? So I saw this contrast of approaches and whatnot. And I said, the music business is on the tracks of the technology train, and that's not a place you want to be. And that really shifted my entire career and made me start following technology. Right, because it's unstoppable. It has exponential impact, and it will drive your business to new heights. And that was highlighted after that point in time by the fact that if you really think about it, the companies that revolutionized music were not music companies, right? To this day, I think Apple should give me some stock. They should just give it to me, because my standard line of people was, iTunes will change your life. Right, I spent, 2 years manually loading CDs into my computer. I had a dedicated laptop to load CDs into, to get all my music off of CDs and onto iTunes, right? And this is obviously before Apple Music was a thing, right? But you get all thousands and thousands and thousands of CDs, loading them in there so I could organize my music and take it someplace with me. Right. And then when I ran out of that, I found a way to do it with my cassette tapes. And when I ran out of that, I found a way to do it with vinyl. And so I used to say all the time, like, iTunes will change your life. And it really did, if you think about it. But the most amazing thing behind it was, to this day, you think of all the different ways people now consume music as compared to how it was 30 years ago. The music companies had nothing to do with that. They were victimized by technology. No one said, Universal Music or Warner Music, none of those companies were the one that came up with the technology. Sony did a great, Sony Consumer Products came up with the Walkman back in the day. That was a big thing, right? But we had nothing to do with the current distribution of music. And so the music business became a victim, if you will, to technology, because it was afraid of it, quite honestly, at the time. So that changed my approach to why I now kind of refer to advanced digital media, right? It is saying that entertainment is media and will change with technology. And you want to be on the train and not on the tracks. So that is kind of what changed the trajectory. I started another company, started doing a lot of consulting with video game companies. I actually at one point worked for a video game company that really was one of the first esports companies. I did a little stint in the ad tech space, but basically everything that I could do to stay at the forefront of technology. And And so that's kind of what led to where I am now on the AR VR side, working with Meta and the Reality Labs component of the business, and dealing with really the future of entertainment, which is, you know, Metaverse and things of that nature, which everyone's still trying to figure out. But it is an important part of any business now, right? We look at social media, right? And I have this line that I say all the time. I say, everyone's a media company now, right? And social media did that, right? Every person can start up a company, if you will, online, and have a bunch of people listen to them or watch them or follow them or like them and things of that nature. Everyone is a media company, and technology permitted that. The Metaverse is going to create an entirely new playground for people to engage in and conduct commerce in and exploit entertainment properties in and things of that nature. So one thing that I advise people now is, especially, and I try to talk to a lot of young people, as Doug mentioned, it's very rewarding to be able to help other folks who are coming up and who can learn from the lessons and the mistakes that you've made, is, you know, never leave technology in the dust, right? You always want to embrace technology, account for technology. When you're making those 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year plans, you have to leave some space for technology, because it has and will come in and completely shift the nature of what you're doing. So that's kind of a bit of my story and kind of where I am and what has taken me along the path. And hopefully in that I've shared some of my thoughts about it. When we start talking about disenfranchisement, it looks very differently now than it did a long time ago. So there's a lot more opportunities to, you know, entrepreneurship is a much bigger thing now than it was before. It's much more attractive. You know, a lot of people, when I was in my 30s and late 20s and getting my entertainment career started up, you had people that joined law firms and wanted to work their way up to law firms. You had people that joined companies and wanted to work their way up to companies. And then you had a handful of wild cards like me that wanted to be entrepreneurial, right? And now the numbers have shifted such that a lot more people are being entrepreneurial, and they can do that because of technology, right? You know, it costs way less to make, and this is not just legal or business. This is creative, the whole nine. Like, you can make a, you know, you see everyone's seeing, you can make a movie on your iPhone now, right? Used to have, you know, a crew and a bunch of cameras and studio and editing bays and, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now you can get on your iPhone and shoot a movie, edit it on your computer, and boom. So technology, again, will impact every aspect of the entertainment business. And the impact of technology is, to some extent, it is making it easier. It is making it more competitive. There are a lot more players in the field. And that does a few things. One is it redefines what success is, right? When Doug mentioned that there were 3 networks back in the 80s or even early 90s, you know, there were 3 places that a successful film was going to come from, right? There was room for everyone to be successful, right? All 3 studios could have huge blockbusters easily in one summer. Wasn't a big deal, right? Now everyone's a media company, right? So to have like a huge successful blockbuster is a lot more difficult now, because there's just so much more content being consumed by so many people in so many different ways. So it's tougher to aggregate that big of an audience. In fact, I had a meeting not that long ago with someone that's working on a film. He started talking about, you know, the goal was to make sure that opening weekend would cover all the expenses of the film. And I'm like, what do you mean opening weekend? What is that? Right? Because, you know, there was a time when that was everything. You know, you release it, you do all this marketing pointing to one opening weekend, everyone will go to the theaters, and you try to make all your money back opening weekend, and the rest would kind of be the gravy train. Well, now that doesn't happen. Theaters have been shut down because of COVID. I don't think that business will ever fully rebound to the extent it was. You know, younger generations are very comfortable, you know, watching content on their phones and tablets and laptops and things of that nature. In fact, we all have gotten a lot more comfortable with consuming content different ways. It has become kind of a thing to find these little quirky films and projects and things of that nature. Everyone has their own favorite project. So it's hard to aggregate the success of entertainment properties. Same with music. There's a lot more different places you can go to get music. So those things are constantly changing, and what that does is kind of have to redefine what you mean by success, right? Having a big blockbuster film cannot be the only measure of success for a filmmaker, right? So that's kind of one thing that has changed. The popularity and the desirability of entrepreneurship is another main thing that's changed, right? One of the kind of taglines in the materials I received about today was talking about, you know, your place at the table. How do you get your seat at the table? Well, it's not a table anymore, right? It's a conference room, or it's a convention center, right? So I think that has a dual impact, right? If you are really focused on like corporate America and taking that path, it may intensify your disenfranchisement. But if you're in that kind of open playground, I think it minimizes, hopefully will inspire us that we can be more competitive, that we can be more successful, that there is a lower barrier to entry. And I think that is, again, there's some balance there, right? What I always tell people is this: like, if and when you feel disenfranchised, reach out and help someone that feels more disenfranchised than you. And a little bit of that is the cynicism that I have that comes with this gray hair, which is, you know, at some point, you know, you're going to carry a level of disenfranchisement with you. It's just the society that we live in. The thing that is more rewarding than being invited to the table is helping someone else get to the table, or having someone else step over the table. And I don't care if you're in your 20s or in your 70s, that is just the reality of it. And you'll be surprised at the impact that has on you, even in your own career goals, even in your own long-term plans. The ability to help other people be successful is extremely valuable. Personally, and quite honestly, you'll find it is valuable with respect to your career. So those are some of the things that I try to share with people, and the advice that I give. There's no formula to this, especially when you're talking about entertainment. I have people ask me all the time, like, what is the best way to, and I'm like, just stop, right? There's no formula for success in the entertainment industry. It relies on a bunch of different things. What I always tell people is you want to definitely be focused. Doug mentioned having a long-term plan. But there's a difference between having a dream and a plan, I always say, right? And so saying that, you know, you want to become X, Y, and Z is one thing. And that's what I think was so valuable about what Doug said was, well, how are you going to get there, right? But what we lose sometimes in that future planning is the right here and right now. And I always tell people, right here and right now, it is extremely important to network. I know it's an old school concept, but it's still extremely valuable. To network, to never stop learning, right? You need to understand your business better than everyone else in your business. That should at least be your goal, right? If you don't understand your business, it's you have to count on luck to be successful in your business, right? And then just to outwork everyone. And I say outwork everyone as a mindset, not a comparative analysis. It's not like, oh, that person stayed at work till 8, I'm gonna stay till 9, right? It's to say in your mind, I'm gonna outwork everyone and not worry about who everyone is. Just if you're gonna look up, you know, I'm the guy, right? Outwork everyone from a mental conceptual standpoint, as opposed to like trying to compare how much time someone else is putting in. You want to have a comfort level that you're working, you're working that hard, right? And if you do those things and then pursue your career path, first of all, whatever path you make, whatever 20-year plan you make, there's a 99% chance that things are going to change and adjust to that, right? And so as you go through your career, you want to always make sure that you're doing those things, because that will put you in the best position to shift when the business shifts, to take advantage of opportunities when they come about, and to be comfortable saying, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I need to shift and go this way. If you think about when I mentioned that, the experience I had at Hollywood Records and Disney, that was a big deal. I had practiced law for 15 years, right? I closed my practice like that. It closed, right? And that required that. So there was a lot of pressure there. So I'm thinking I'm going to ride this executive train, and it lasted for about 18 months, not even 18 months, right? Before things shifted, right? And I couldn't panic. I couldn't worry about disenfranchisement. I had to have a plan, be able to shift with the business and spin into a different direction in order to kind of continue along a positive trajectory. right? So there's a value to that here and now. There's a value to that long range plan as well. And you just have to think in multiples, as opposed to kind of honing in on one thing and there being one way to do it and my success is going to happen this way. It's a very adaptable field in the first place. When we talk about the entertainment field, anyone can have success in entertainment irrespective of what your credentials are. So you can't say, it's not, I went to this school and I did that and I did that. There'll be a high school dropout that crushes you because they were more creative or they had a different opportunity and things of that nature. And I'm not saying that to discourage people from getting credentials, but you have to understand there's not a way this happens, right? You just have to be in a position where you want to be where you can take advantage of shifts in the business and make sure you understand the business and never stop learning. So I'm going to stop there because, again, I do want to make sure I get a chance to answer specific questions, and happy to do that for as much time as I have, Jess.
Thanks. Excuse me. We're switching. Thanks, Michael. Hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Good. We're slowly figuring out these audio issues. So we do have a question. We got about 15 minutes for questions, and I'm going to bring up one of our students, Karthik, who has collected some questions. But I just wanted to, before we get to those, I just had a thought. You were saying that every enterprise is essentially a media company. Now, and I have some of my students, we were talking about the sort of Spotify, Neil Young thing all this week. And I asked them, is Spotify a tech company or a media company? And it was interesting that most of them, I think, did say that it was a media company. But do you think there's some, I guess my question is some duplicity in there? Is that you want to be a tech company when you want to not take responsibility for what's on your platform, and then you want to be a media company when you want to lock up a popular podcast, because you were also talking about ethics. I guess my question is, what's the ethical conundrum, if there is any, when everybody is a media company?
And I want to be clear, not only every company, every person is a media company. That's kind of what my tagline is. Look, as soon as you start putting out, what is a media company? You are distributing media. As soon as you do that, you become a media company. Right. So you may have started as a tech company. Your distribution model may be 100% reliant on advanced technology. But if you distribute content, you are a media company. Right. So the notion of a Spotify or someone like that being a tech company and trying to pretend that they're not a media company doesn't make sense from my personal opinion. You are distributing media that makes you a media company. Tech is how you distribute it. Right. Oracle is not a tech company. It's not a media company. They're a tech company. They make technology. You can buy it, use it, sell, and use it to distribute media. But as soon as you distribute some media, you become a media company. And I do think that is where the obligation and there's a heightened level of responsibility, even for individuals, right, to understand that they're a media company influencing other people. When I was in law school, it was interesting. They had it was a visual image. It was really powerful. I was taking copyright law, right? And one of the big issues then, and this was in the late 80s, I was in law school 84 to 87. So this was in the 80s, mid 80s. And they had a picture of a handgun and a picture of a VCR, an old tape version of VCR. It may have been a beta, who knows, right? And the question is who is responsible? Who is being held more responsible for what you do with this item, right? The notion of holding a gun manufacturer liable for someone taking a gun and shooting someone with it was beyond ridiculous, right? But the notion of a machine that allows people to copy and distribute media, like they want to regulate, criminalize, right? That machine at some point in time, right? And so anytime you start distributing media, you're going to be under more scrutiny, you're going to impact more people. And I think there is a level of responsibility that comes along with that.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. So I'm going to pass it on to our student card that is in that same vein, has some questions that he's gathered from our audience. So you can take the mask off.
Hey, Michael. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. We really, really appreciate it. So I have a couple questions that I've gathered. This first question is from Colm. Colm asks, Meta yesterday announced the implementation of personal boundaries to stop harassment for VR avatars. From a legal standpoint, how does Meta plan to navigate harassment in a virtual reality age?
Good question. So I can't tell you. I can speak on that conceptually, right? Because the short answer is as best as we can. And that's not a way of avoiding the question, but we're just in a completely new territory. The AR VR world is completely new. It's not all planned out. The notion of the metaverse is like saying internet. It's not something that Meta is going to own or control. It will ultimately be a collaborative effort, and I always tell people just think of it as a more advanced version of the internet, where you are a more immersive version of the internet. And look, it's the old kind of internet security and hacker issue, right? You just can't anticipate everything that several billion people are going to do online or in the metaverse. Like there's no way. So you can try to anticipate certain things and build in protections, but it's a constant cat and mouse game, just like internet security is. It used to be a time when viruses were easy and all you had to do was download a virus program and it would catch it, and then people figured out ways around that and ways to hack and create worms and bots and all kinds of things. And it's kind of the cat chasing the mouse, the cat chasing the mouse, the cat chasing the mouse. So unfortunately, I don't have a very definitive answer for you there. I can say the company recognizes the potential harm and dangers in the metaverse and as we continue to advance down this path. But there's not a one theory or one step approach on this. In fact, what you have to plan for something like this is to be as fluid as possible and put yourself in the best position to try to chase down solutions to problems like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. Facebook specifically has been linked to misinformation from the 2016 election till now. As Meta plans on pushing further into the digital age, how does Meta plan on pushing back against further misinformation on its platforms like Facebook, VR, Instagram, etc.?
I mean, it's ultimately the same thing, and I want to be very clear. So I work for what's called Reality Labs. It's the AR, VR side of the house. So I don't have anything to do with what people think about when they think about Facebook. If you happen to have a Quest 2 and put it on and consume our games and things of that nature in the AR, VR space, that's the division that I work on. But it is ultimately the same thing. The company is and will continue to do the best it can. And it's a moving target to try to figure out the best way to protect the platform, not from a company standpoint, but from a community standpoint. And that always involves, one decision is going to piss off a group of people, the opposite decision is going to piss off a different group of people. And so again, there's not a solution to that. And if someone knew the solution to that, believe me, come in and you can run the space, right? Because like I said, everyone's a media company. There are all kind of things that people say and do that they can easily broadcast across a number of platforms. That's what the concept behind social media is, right? It is social media. It's designed to let the people put out whatever they want to put out and for people to be able to consume that content. So trying to now cast a net around that and control it is a constant game of cat and mouse.
Hi, Michael, it's Wes again. So thanks, Karthik, for asking this question. I got one more. I think we have time for one more, and this one came in from Carl, who was sort of listening to your. It seems like he's a bit of a music industry vet as well, and was interesting about how technology companies really dominate the music space, and this idea that where you are now with AR, VR, and Meta could be the next revolution, as it will. So the question is, as a veteran of the music industry who weathered the storm of file sharing and the technology takeover, how do you see Meta and the position you have now to be equally revolutionary, and where would that revolution take the space that we're in? Hopefully that makes sense.
I think it does. I'm going to try to answer that, and hopefully I understand the question properly. I do want to very quickly, something just occurred to me. So the prior two questions were basically asking about Facebook or Meta in particular, and how it's going to control, monitor. It's kind of like saying, how's the ocean going to control a shark? Right? Best you can. From that standpoint, like it is that robust and broad of a problem or an issue. And this question is not unlike that from the standpoint of, I think that a company, you basically have three major players, right? You have content companies, right? You have, record labels, you have film companies. What they do is own content. They sign artists, they acquire catalogs, they make movies, they create TV shows. And at the end of all those things, you always see a copyright notice, which means someone owns it, right? That is the content business, right? And that's one bucket. Now, some companies obviously do multiple things, but that is one business. And there's an old advertising saying that says content is king, right? So that's kind of bucket one. Bucket two is, or really bucket three is distribution. Right. And that says whatever that content is, whatever the most important, successful, desirable content of that, we're going to get that content out and make it available to as many people as possible. That is a separate business model. And typically distribution, I don't want to say they don't care. The content is not their problem. Right. So if you go back quite a few years, you had these, what they call independent record distribution companies. And what they would do is you could come to them. This is how Eazy-E and NWA got so big and companies like that. They found these guys that said, we will distribute your music for you. And you can bring in whatever you want. I'm not listening to it. I'm not trying to evaluate how good it is. I'm not trying to decide if you're a star or not. I'm going to make your music available. And if people buy it, great. I'll collect money and send you most of it, right? As opposed to like a record label, a content company had to say, oh, we want to sign this artist and not that artist and have this artist record these songs and their image needs to look like this, or film is this genre and this director and this producer. Those are decisions content companies make. Distribution companies say, bring it and I'm going to set it all up. And when people want it, I'm going to deliver it. And the more I deliver, the more money I make. And I don't care particularly what the content is. Now, there are obviously some, ethical controls that people do, and where they want to control some of that content. But at the end of the day, any media is being distributed now, right? And it can be far left, it can be far right, it can be, for children, it can be for adults, it can, it gets distributed by distribution companies, right? And then technology companies, their goal is to make that process more fluid and more economical, and build scale in that distribution process, right? And those are the three particular silos. Now, obviously, you have companies that do all three, that do two of the three, 1.5 of the three, things of that nature. But you have to start off by putting the entertainment business, if you will, into those three categories from a business standpoint. There's content creation, there's distribution, how it gets out to people, and then there's the technology, which really drives that. And so looking at the business that way, I think helps answer a lot of these questions and concerns, and kind of what you began with, Wes, was, is a certain company a distribution company or is it a media company? I mean, again, they can have multiple functions, but those are the steps in the process. Right? If you are a distribution company, you are more concerned about making content available to people than the quality of the content, because you're dealing in bigger numbers, right? If you are a content company, you're 100% concerned about the quality of the content and desirability of the content, right? And if you're a technology company, you want to make sure that you're building that bridge wide enough and high enough, and that it's fast enough, and that it's efficient, and that it's very inexpensive. And I don't think those concepts will ever change. The technologies will change. The nature of the content will change. People's acceptability of the content will change. Societal norms and limitations on what you can and can't do, and all those things will constantly change. But those three buckets will never change.
Well, you're sort of making me think about, well, first of all, thank you for an NWA reference, Max. You know this, I teach a hip hop class over the winter, so at least one student who should get that reference, at least, right? But I think it's interesting because we talked about that, the role of the distribution company and how it's fundamentally different. Now you got me thinking that's a very interesting way to look at the sort of ecosphere, especially as a former record label cat myself who dealt with distribution options. I'm looking forward to how your philosophy into this sort of new wild, wild west that we're going into may make me feel a little bit more comfortable than I did this morning. So thank you very much. So Mike, I don't know if you have any last thoughts, before we get out of here, but, we really appreciate you taking the time, and I'll just let you get the final word if you have any.
Yeah, I do. I was going to give you a quick story. Like, I was in Los Angeles. Most of if you go far enough south down the beach, you'll hit an area, kind of Hawthorne Torrance area, where there are these oil refineries or oil distributors, quite honestly, oil and gas distributors, right? And I remember I used to work out down that way, and they had, huge. I don't know if it was an actual refinery, but that's where companies went to get their gasoline. Right, huge area, all these big tanks and everything like that. They were a distributor because you would see a Chevron truck come up and fill up. You'd see, every gas, Arco truck come and fill up. That is what distribution is about. It is really passing that content out and around, right? There are a lot of questions here that are predictive, that are seeking kind of a predictive analysis of where the industry is headed. And that is one of the most difficult things to do. And a lot of that is because of technology, right? I would say certainly wherever you want to enter the entertainment industry, whether it's music, film, television, if it's creative, it's marketing, if it's distribution, if it's legal, if it's finance, whatever area it is, it's very important to recognize the impact of technology on the business, to understand the business extremely well, right? And to be able to be fluid within that business, because those are the things that will help you be able to predict with some level of confidence where the business is headed, right? Part of the reason we have so many successful, huge new companies that didn't exist 10, 15, 20 years ago is because they come in and they look at the business and they look at it differently than the folks on the inside of the business. As I mentioned, everyone in the music business was thinking like the internet, that's horrible. Right. The one person that looked at it differently, right, started iTunes, right? Because they looked at they're like, oh, this is horrible. Like, you have to go to a store and and if I want to take my music with me, I can only take like we used to have a little bag of CDs and carry like 10 CDs around with us, or a 10 CD changer. I can take all my music with me everywhere I go and organize it. That's great. And that, and now it's just like, oh, all the music is out there and I can just grab it and pull it down and pay a monthly fee. Right. So the way those ideas came about is by looking at the business in a different way than a lot of people look at it on the inside. And we are easily to get stuck in traditions and ruts and things of that nature. So I encourage people to continue to creatively look at the business so that you can try to predict how those things will shift and change in the future. Other than that, I just want to say thank you. I wish we had more time, but I understand. But again, I love doing these types of things. And I just want to encourage everyone. There's plenty of space out there in the entertainment industry. Just do your part, do your homework. It is a business, so you still have to get in there and work hard. It's not just sit back and see what happens type of industry. Is highly competitive. And I just encourage people to go out there and do their best.